watching ASMR Chic. Come relax with me. Wear headphones. Hi guys, you are watching ASMR Chic, and I am JJ, the Chic Prince. So, some of you guys have been enjoying this so far. There's not a lot of you guys that watch my videos, but for those of you that do watch my videos, I appreciate you guys, and this is for you. So a lot of you guys know, or I guess most of you guys know, that this is from a series that we are reading. It's a series that I have on my channel called Let's Read. And the book we are currently reading is a book that was written and illustrated by Carl J. Van Loo. Link is in my bio if you'd like to check it out. But again, as I always say, if you don't want to pay for the book, this is your chance to listen to the book for free. I'm not showing you like the pages I'm reading, so you won't be able to read along, obviously. Again, if you do want to do that, link is in my bio, or link is in my description below. And you can pick it up there. So, this book is called The Adventures of Marvin Pickering. The Adventures of Marvin Pickering. In the Miracle of Weston Falls. I kind of like page sounds. One of my friends and fellow creators here on YouTube, Waning Crescent, he has a video, I believe it's called The Casino, something along those lines, but he does a lot of card sounds, and I really enjoy card sounds. It's a great video, so if you haven't checked out the Waning Crescent ASMR, or Waning Crescent ASMR, be sure to go check him out. You can see him in the comments. He's usually always in my comments. So much love, bro. I appreciate you always supporting me, and I assure you I will always be here to support you as well. So today we are going to be reading Chapter 3. Chapter 3. We ended Chapter 2 with Marvin having his first kiss and learning that his father is currently missing in action. Again, this book is based in the Vietnam War era. So let's go ahead and start with Chapter 3. I'm looking forward to this. Chapter 3. Escape to the Big Woods. Marvin was living in shock all that night after reading the letter about his dad. It stated that his father was seen last in the jungle near the borders of Laos, Cambodia, and South Vietnam. They claimed his unit underwent a severe shelling from a Viet Cong ambush as they were surveying a road used as part of the Ho Chi Minh Trail. There were some casualties, but they believed he was taken alive along with other U.S. soldiers. His father was a good soldier, the best, by any estimation. His primary duties were in communications and supply management for the troops, such as ammunition. Marvin told himself he would always remember this date, April 11th, 1968, even though at the beginning he doubted he would ever see his father again. There was something driving him to believe the opposite. His mind was made up. He would never quit believing that his dad would come home again. Marvin mulled over in his mind all the possibilities. He thought, if only they could find him. He dearly wished there was some way he could help locate his dad. Helplessness and despondency gripped Marvin like a constricting snake around his spirit. Questions arose in his mind, and his confusion daunted him. Why, God? Why did my dad have to go to Vietnam? Why couldn't he have stayed home? Even though he knew the answers, he couldn't help himself. He needed some reassurance from someone, a positive note, something to take away the fear. Tears welled up in his eyes. He had to find a place to have time alone. He tried to figure out where he could hide for the day. There's nowhere to be alone at school, Marvin thought. Today is Friday, no school tomorrow. I could run away. He knew there was absolutely only one place he knew of where he could find solace from all of his troubles. His favorite place in the entire world. Marvin! He heard a voice behind him. It was drawing near to him. He could tell by the shaking in her voice and the clapping of the hard-soled shoes. He knew the voice. It was the voice of Ellen Peterson. In a way, he was glad to hear her voice, but also not so glad after what happened yesterday. Wow. Yesterday. What a rotten day it turned out to be. Sorry. My nose is itching. Marvin thought out loud as Ellen neared his side. Marvin! Ellen was exhausted from running. She slowed down as she caught up with him. She was now walking alongside Marvin, trying to get his attention. But he would not look at her. Marvin, I'm sorry for what happened yesterday. I didn't mean for us to have this problem, really. Ellen could tell there was something very wrong with Marvin. His eyes had tears in them. She couldn't figure out why he would be that upset about the whole kissing thing. Marvin, stop. Please, stop. He hesitated, then stopped, unable to look at Ellen. His demise was not just because of his embarrassment, but because he was having a very hard time holding back the tears. Marvin, I'm really, really sorry. I truly am. Please don't hold it against me. Please. Please forgive me. Marvin, I love you. Her speech was strained. Her heart was pierced from the emotions she was experiencing. Tears began to well up in her eyes. Marvin, please say something. I need you to talk to me. Please. He did not know how to react now. His emotions were all mixed up from the confusion between Ellen and himself, and the news of his father missing in Nam. Marvin had finally stopped and stood still. Then he mustered up every ounce of his energy in order to control himself, enough to talk. What Ellen had to say, what Ellen had said, actually dawned on him. He couldn't believe what his ears had just heard. Ellen loves me. He had to mull over the thought for a moment. A glimmer of hope and joy rose up, but for a moment, only to be snuffed out by the gross reality of the news concerning his dad. Marvin had convinced himself that Ellen would hate him for sure, but instead she loved him. Marvin always liked her. Marvin always liked her as a friend, but he questioned within himself as a girlfriend. The thought never crossed his mind until now. He knew he loved her, but never had the nerve to express his feelings toward her. But now was the time. was hard to muster up enough strength to let her know what happened to his father without bursting into tears. Marvin looked at Ellen, embarrassed by how emotional he was becoming. "Ellen, I love you too." He reached into his pocket, pulling out an official-looking parcel of paper, then placed it in her hand and rolled her fingers onto the firm grip around it. Holding her hands within his, he then wrapped his arms around her shoulders, hugging her, but the emotions and the tears were too great. He could not stay with her. He had to leave before embarrassment would accompany the mood as well. "Goodbye, Ellen. I'll always love you." Marvin broke their embrace and left Ellen standing in the road while he ran off with all his might. Unable to bear the pain, he had to leave forever to the big woods. Ellen stood still, totally shocked, as she watched Marvin running away from her for the second time in 2 days. She knew there was something else wrong with him, something very, very wrong. She knew him like a book. He had never been upset like this before. Then she remembered the note. The shock from the completely emotional roller coaster they had just shared caused the lapse in reality. She slowly opened the letter and read deliberately, slowly, the message with tears. With tears rolling out of her eyes, she now understood the truth, the reason for Marvin's depressed state of mind. Guilt caused her to regret her actions towards him, and compassion for his loss compounded her deepest fear of what he might do in reaction to the bad news. Angela Pickering was lying in her bed with the covers tight in the grip of her hands close to her chin. Depressed over the news she had received about her husband, the news of his disappearance was very hard for her to take. Her telephone rang. It broke the dulled sense of the moment like an air raid siren. For a moment, she hesitated to pick it up for fear that she might hear the bad news about her husband. She slowly pulled her arm out from under the comfort of her covers, reached for the receiver, then picked it up. "Hello," she said, clearing her voice from the weariness and the lack of sleep. It was Marvin's school secretary. She was wondering why he was not in school that morning. Perhaps he was sick. "Marvin isn't at school." "What?" she said, sniffing. "No, he was just here this morning. I haven't seen him. I was in bed when he left." She told the secretary the story about the letter and how her husband was missing in Vietnam, and the emotional strain it must have placed on Marvin. "He must have ran off. I don't know where he might have gone." She could not contain herself. The news of her husband missing, and now her son. This was more than she could bear. She broke down into tears, and even while she heard the concerns of the person on the phone line, she had to hang up. Their neighbor, Mr. Hansen, was the first one to respond to the yelling he heard up the street. "What in the..." It sounded like Miss Pickering yelling, and obviously very upset. "Dear God, bring back my son. Please, God. Marvin, where are you? Marvin." She was in the street yelling, hysterical from all that befell her. Mr. Hansen ran to her and grabbed her by the shoulders to try to help. "Miss Pickering, what is it? What happened?" "It's Marvin. He's run away." "Why did he have to run away?" She was sobbing bitterly in the arms of her good neighbor, Mr. Hansen. He could not understand why she would be acting this hysterically over Marvin running away. "Miss Pickering, kids run away sometimes. You know it. It's normal in some cases. Perhaps he was just upset about something. I'm sure he'll come home soon." No, he won't. You don't understand. My husband, She tried to explain the situation to Mr. Hansen, but the words came out and sat her down. "Now, Miss Pickering, slow down, take it easy, and tell me everything." Angela told him about the bad news and about how she and her son were very upset all night. Then she told him how Marvin did not go to school this morning, that he ran away, and how she was afraid for his safety. "I think he may have run into the woods. It's going to be dark in a few hours, and cold. I think he may have run off to the preserve area. Jay used to take Marvin there, and he went there on campouts. I don't know where to start. I'm not sure if he'll be okay. I'm scared. Please help me, Mr. Hanson. Can you please help us?" She began to cry, and Mr. Hanson held her close to his side, consoling her. "I'll get some folks together, Angela. You stay here at home. We'll find Marvin. I'm sure of it. You promise me you'll stay here, okay?" "Okay, I'll stay here," she said, between the sniffling and the wiping of her tears. Mr. Hanson stood up and started to walk down her porch steps, then hesitated and turned around and looked towards her, saying, "Miss Pickering, pray." She looked at him as she dried the tears with her lace handkerchief, and then paused, giving him a courteous nod. She stared in his direction, in dazed mental fog, as Mr. Hanson was walking towards the direction of his house, now alone on the porch, feeling desolate, confused, and lonely. She had only one option now. There was no other way to proceed from here. No sitting on her porch in the humid late afternoon air. She looked towards the heavens and prayed. The woods were in full radiance, with the spring beckoning the resident flora and fauna as if to say, "Release your beauty, release your performance, dance for your onlookers, that they may bask in the resplendent day. Let no one vex you with their appalling edifices. Yours is a sanctuary of peace, lasting for generations to come. Peace is with you, my fellow denizens of this great wood. I shall rejoice in your luxurious accommodation." That was quite the paragraph. Marvin could feel his spirit release from his troubled thoughts and unburled emotions. This was where he needed to be, away from everything, surrounded by the restful atmosphere of the woods. "I love this place. I can stay here forever," he said to himself. Marvin searched through his backpack to make sure he had everything he needed for a stay, for however long that might be. Let's see, I have my compass, my Swiss Army knife, my map, some beef jerky, and matches. Oh boy, no bedroll, no tent. This is not good. He had not planned his departure very well. Fortunately, he had his warm jacket in anticipation of the chill that accompanied nightfall this time of year. I guess this is as good a time as any to apply all the survival training I learned in Scouts. With dusk only an hour away, I'll need to make a small shelter to bed down for the night. I'll get a fresh start in the morning. I should reach the river by noon. Marvin smiled, feeling quite proud of himself, and took great pleasure in his self-confidence. Marvin began to gather up some vines and pieces of wood, setting them down on the ground in perfect order. He sharpened the ends of the 2 large branches he had gathered, and then used a heavy rock to hammer a large stick into the ground or so in front of a large maple tree. He repeated the procedure parallel to the other stick in front of the tree. He tied together the two sticks he pounded into the ground. He fastened a strong, stiff branch across the top of the two other sticks. Then he lashed two sticks from the strong branch of the tree with thin vines, making sure they were as tight as possible. Then he broke off several small green tree branches and placed them on top of the sticks, tying them on securely with more thin vines. Though it had taken a considerable amount of time, the task was rewarding. Ah, done at last. It looks very nice, if I do say so myself. Good job, Marvin, he said, patting himself on the back. Now you've all set in motion. It's onset of dusk, painting a composition of color in the sky. Purple, red, orange clouds, broadcast to the deep blue backdrop, announcing the day's end. This day was made especially for you, Marvin said to the sky. A slight chill started to permeate the air, bringing in the eerie darkness of night. The stars started to show their glimmer and glorious splendor in the springtime sky. It was a good night for a camp out. How many of you guys like camping? I love camping. It's just really good to be able to get away from the city. I live in a city, but luckily there's camping grounds near here and plenty of woods around me, so it doesn't take too much effort to get out of the city and get into nature. I truly do love being out in nature. It's one of my favorite things to do. Marvin kneeled down, feeling a spontaneity and urgency to call on the creator of this wonderful grandeur. Dear Lord, I want to thank you for the beautiful surroundings in this wood. It is all very grand. In addition, I just wanted to let you know that I'm not mad at you or anything like that. I'm just upset about my dad. I love my dad. And I need him right now. Please help me. I wish there was something I could do to help him. Please, God, please help me and watch over my dad, wherever he is right now. Marvin finished his prayer and then built a small campfire to warm him before bedding down for the night. His memory sent him back to those precious moments he had spent with his father, playing baseball in the park, riding their bikes through the wooded trails, tobogganing down Miller's Hill, and building the largest snowman anyone had ever seen. The Monopoly games in front of the hearth, while a warm fire crackled in the fireplace. He thought, possibly the greatest of all, campouts in the woods. Oh, Dad, I miss you so. Please, someone find him. Someone find my dad, please. Marvin spoke softly, hesitantly as he drifted into a deep sleep, weary from the stressful day. There were no small stir about the disappointments of Marvin. There was no small stir about the disappearance of Marvin. His mother looked in all of the obvious places of the woods, but she could not find him. Panic began to grip her heart. She received a call from the police dispatch, where the search party was meeting on Weston Avenue, and if she wanted to, she could meet them there. Angela Pickering ran down the road towards the direction of the entrance of the woods. It was only about 5 blocks from her home. Once she rounded the bend in the road, she could see the search party assembling on the side of the road. There were several cars, vans, and pickup trucks, all parked along the area of the woods at the northern end of Weston Avenue. She picked up her pace, arriving to the roadside in haste. She stopped directly in front of Sheriff Knowles. She was desperate, and her tone of voice definitely reflected just that. Please find my son, Daryl. Please. He's all I have right now. I need him home safely. The sheriff could tell that she was extremely upset and responded accordingly. "Oh, please, Angela, try to remain calm. If Marvin is in those woods, we will find him. I can assure you of that. I have 4 separate search parties out to comb these woods. There is no way he can elude us, unless he is not in the woods at all. Just go home and try to be patient. We'll take care of things on this end." Darrell Knowles was a good friend of the Pickerings. Marvin's father, Jay Pickering, and Darrell went to school together and were both on the wrestling team and graduated the same year. Darrell loved them all, he thought assuredly, and would gladly offer his life for them. He often regretted being unable to enter the military service because of medical reasons. He desired to go, but at the same time was relieved. Consequently, he underwent several operations and finally had the problem with his spine resolved, yet only enough for him to function adequately. Some people thought his handicap could be a risk with his position as the sheriff, but nothing exciting ever happened in this quiet little community. The incident with Marvin was the most excitement they had had in years. He felt terrible having to send her away, but he held her best interest above the feelings of his own. "Okay, boys, let's huddle up and go over the game plan," he said as he turned away from her and faced the team, trying not to show his true emotions. Angela walked home with Miss Hanson at her side, consoling her with words of comfort as they sauntered their way down Weston Avenue. A chilling breeze interrupted the conversation, causing Angela to be mindful. She couldn't help but wonder if Marvin had worn his jacket, or if he had something to eat. There was only a hope and a prayer for his safe return. It would be Saturday in an hour, and she could feel her eyes becoming heavy with sleep. This day had absolutely driven her to a frazzle. The 2 women walked up the pathway leading towards the Pickering home, and then Miss Hanson gave Angela a word of comfort and reassurance concerning the competency of the men doing the search, then broke away her embrace with a kiss on Angela's cheek before leaving her standing on the dark, lonesome porch. Angela entered her home, slowly closing the ornately edged glass entry door behind her. She crept from the door, hunched over, and knelt down on the sofa. Pangs of self-pity and separation anxiety erupted in her soul, causing tears to well up inside of her. Dear Heavenly Father, please keep your protective hand on Marvin. He's a good boy. He needs you right now. Please send your angels to protect him. Tears flowed unconstrained down her face as she interceded for her son and her husband until the dawn of the day. The search party gathered at the main entrance of the big woods on Weston Avenue. The sheriff was briefing them on the proper strategy they would use in combing the forest during nightfall. Now I know this seems like a rough method of going about finding someone, but it's the only method that will work properly. The sheriff was now pointing towards the 3 men on the horseback. Johnson, Williams, and Hanson. You guys ride up the crest of Miller's Hill, then work your way back towards the river. Go back down the river bank until you reach Gates Ranch. There's a shallow area where you'll cross over the other side, and check for clues as you go. The kid isn't going to cross the big water, we know that. The sheriff turned and faced the other teams, and then he raised his voice for clarity. The rest of us, will start here. Each group spread out by 50 yards or so. We'll search this wood like a fine-tooth comb." The sheriff looked at all the teams. "Are we ready?" The men affirmed through nods and verbal agreement. "Okay then, let's go." The equestrians, horses, rode off down Western Avenue with the strong spotlights beaming from the front ends of their heads, then up the Miller's Post Road towards the Miller's Summit Park area. The rest of the search party split up and began an exhaustive march through the wood. They were walking down what seemed like a squirrel path, often having to push their way through shrubbery in order to keep on course. They communicated back and forth to each other through walkie-talkies. Then one of the men cited something. "Sheriff." "This is the sheriff. Go ahead." "Sheriff, we found a clue. There's footprints on this here path, and they look fairly fresh." "Okay, don't move. I'll be right there." The sheriff hurried through the brush as fast as he could. "Okay, let me take a look at it." He pushed his way through the group of men in order to observe the clues. The team looked at the footprints with a discerning eye. The sheriff took out his sketch pad and marked down the pattern for reference. "I believe we're onto something here, boys. Keep on the trail as best you can. The rest of us will follow a short distance behind your group." The sheriff called out the whole search party on the walkie-talkie. "Okay, we have a trail. They're shoe prints. They look about the right size for Marvin. Spread out in your groups and follow behind Riley's team. Let's go." The sheriff said, flailing his arms in the direction they should walk. The inopportune thing they couldn't perceive was that Marvin hadn't taken his normal trail. He decided to go back onto Miller's Post Road at the base of the hill, and then he worked his way up the riverbank into the Forest Preserve area north of the Gates Ranch property line. He did not want to go on their property once he crossed the river. He really didn't like those people, so he avoided them as much as possible. The dawn broke through the sky in a halo of radiance above the trees. Marvin awoke with a start from an unfamiliar voice and the touch of someone or something on his shoulder. What the? He was staring right into the face of a rough-looking old man dressed in what looked like a tan suede leather outfit. The jacket and the pants had tassels and buckles at the sides of the cuffs. His boots were black and very new-looking. He had a flat-topped drifter-style cowboy hat, and on his head with a partridge hat band, adding an elegant look to the hat. "Well, 'tis about time you woke up, young feller. Sun's raising. Ain't time for sleeping." "What? Who are you?" Marvin asked with a great deal of reservation. "Oh, me? Name's John. And you is Marvin, if I was correct." "Well, how did you know my name?" "Well, on there, half the town's looking for you. I figured a young fella like you'd have a better mind to run off like you did. Why, this forest ain't no place for a young'un." Marvin was a bit scared out of this loud, seemingly cantankerous old man. There was something about him that aroused Marvin's curiosity. What is his trapper clothing? There was something like a kindred spirit, or like a long-lost friend that had come to a visit. After being gone for several years, Marvin stood up, shook and wiped off several leaves that clung to his clothing, now looking at the kind face of the mysterious stranger standing before him. "Well, nice to have met you, Mr. Oh, John's my name." "John what?" "Just John." "You must have a last name." "No, just John." "You have to have a last name. Everybody has a last name." "Nope, not me. It's just John." "That's too bad," Marvin said suspiciously. He grabbed up a few things that he had and started to walk off. John looked at Marvin with a smile on his face. "Hold up a minute, young feller. You ain't going this alone, are you?" "Of course I am. I don't need anyone to help me. I can take care of myself," he said, showing confidence. "I want to be alone away from everyone." He was beginning to get emotional again, and he could feel the tears well up in his eyes. "Just leave me alone. I'll be okay. I know my way around here just fine." "Well, it's fine by me. I just figured you was in need of a hand to get back. I'm not going back. I'm going to live in the woods forever. I'm never going back." Marvin could feel the tears welling up now, and he couldn't stay and talk to this old man any longer. He turned and ran from the old man just as fast as his legs could travel. John stood there with a concerned look on his face, calling out to Marvin as he bolted off like a reindeer. "Wait, John looked up to the sky and said, "Wait, Lord, I think it's going to be a bit harder than I figured." He shook his head, looking in the direction of his departing friend, and then proceeded to walk through the forest following Marvin. Marvin ran and ran, frustrated with the whole occurrence, not realizing that the rocky terrain was rather difficult to traverse while running, and soon he had to stop to catch his breath. He traveled up the hills along the river looking for a spot shallow enough to cross over. "If I can just get over to the other side, then nobody will be able to find me. I'll be free at last." The big woods was not an easy terrain to be traveled through. It had several high hills, and rocky cliffs and bluffs filled with the shale and granite boulders, not excluding the waterfall. The trees and the dense foliage did not make it any easier. It was all very beautiful, even though it was hard traveling, but he was just too frustrated to indulge in his invariants. I don't know what the word is. "Where is the crossing point I used to use? I know it was here somewhere," he said to himself as he continued to climb the hillside along the river. Marvin noticed that the river was much deeper down in the gorge. "Oh, petunias, I'm getting too high up. I need to climb back down to the river. This trail is too far away." It's a long chapter. He turned back towards the river so he could work his way back down the slope. He climbed down the steep hillside, carefully working his way around large boulders, and then slid down loose shale to the top of the large boulder. The surface, typically covered with the loose shale, consequently caused him to lose his footing. He slipped off the rock. Flying feet burst off the cliff below. Fortunately, it wasn't long, but enough for him to hit the high water shelf with a hard thump. All he could remember was the stars and the blackness from hitting his head on the way down the cliff. "Ow! Oh man!" he complained as he held the back of his head, feeling for damage. No damage, thank God. He slowly stood to his feet, assessing the rest of his body for injuries. "Wow, I made it down that cliff alive. That's quite a miracle," he said, staring up the steep slope. Once on the stream bed, he scanned the situation, making a plausible observation, and then suddenly realizing why he could not cross over. Springtime. It's spring. The water runs high this time of year. Just in that moment of what seemed to be his greatest frustration, Marvin heard a voice talking directly behind him. "Yep, sure does. Part near twice the level this summer, and it's the murky looking, if you ask me." Marvin knew that voice. How could anyone mistake that accent? He quickly turned around and stared in total astonishment at the unexpected visitor. Sitting on a boulder, swinging his legs back and forth, clicking his boots together like a little child, and smiling as big as a cow eating brains. As a cow eating briars. As as a cow eating briars. John, how? You, Marvin said in total disbelief of the possibility of that old guy getting there that fast. I took the shortcut. You youngins just don't know. You youngins just don't know, diddly, does you? You think you know it all. Got the whole world at your fingertips. Ha! Kinda wet behind the ears, if you ask me. Marvin just stood there and stared at John, trying to figure out what to say next. What's the matter? Cat got your tongue? No, I just can't believe you got here so fast. Which way did you go? Oh, that don't matter none. Fact is, I'm here now. And you is needing me to help you. I don't need any help, thank you. I can totally handle this on my own. Marvin turned himself away from John, folding his arms, looking quite resolute. Oh, sure. And I suppose you're gonna swim across that there river. Nope. Ain't gonna happen in this life for sure. I can do it. I know I can. Why, you just watch me. Marvin turned and marched towards the water, seemingly confident in his ability, and then he abruptly halted at the brink of the river, staring into the water. John just watched in amusement, seeing all Marvin's confidence diminish like a mist on the summer's day. Nope, too fast, and sides, you don't swim too well, remember? Well, yes, Marvin had a puzzled look on his face. Wait a minute, how did you know that? No one knows that about me except Ellen Peterson and my mother. You. John jumped down off the rock and walked towards Marvin. I knows a lot about you, Marvin. Now John's voice had a marked change. His accent had disappeared, and his face was no longer old-looking. It almost looked like it glowed, kind of like his mother's face does after a revival meeting they had at church once a week last year. Who are you? You're not John. Who are you? Where did you come from? Marvin looked quite puzzled, and a great fear began to disrupt his spirit, causing him to lean back on a large boulder. Don't be fearful, Marvin. My name really is John. As to where I came from, that doesn't matter right now. You need to come with me now, Marvin. We have a little boat ride to go on. It's the only way. He pointed to a small wooden boat moored on the riverbank about 50 yards downstream from where they were standing. There, see, we have to hurry. The time is well spent, and we have a lot to accomplish in a short period of time. Marvin felt strange now, as if he were in some sort of a trance. John placed his arm around Marvin's shoulder and guided him towards the boat. Marvin suddenly felt a great calm come over him like a waterfall. It was as if someone had confirmed in his spirit that everything John said was true, and everything would be all right. Where are we going? Marvin asked in a low voice. John looked at Marvin and smiled, speaking in a calming tone. You'll see. It's the answer to your prayers. There's a picture. It's kind of hard to see. So that way, when this is all done, you'll have a full audiobook to listen to with all 12 chapters. That all being said, I appreciate you guys. I really do. Let me know in the comments what you think about Chapter 3. Who you guys think John is, and just how you're enjoying the series so far. If you have any advice, like I'm super new to ASMR creating and stuff like that, and I'm not like the best reader. So I appreciate you guys for sticking around, because there's some words that I'm stumbling through, and my ADD, like, it's really hard for me to focus, so it does take a lot of work for me to focus on reading this book. It's really hard for me to read books. I prefer listening to audiobooks. I can absorb the information better that way. So I do appreciate you guys for sticking along through this ride. It's been interesting, but I do appreciate you guys. If you guys are asleep right now or trying to sleep, I hope you have sweet dreams and enjoy your time in that beautiful world that we all love to go through in our dreams. If you have more time during this day, if it's daytime for you still, and you still have plenty of day left to live through and get through, I hope you have a successful day, and you remain positive. Remember, you are loved. You have a purpose for being here in this life. It may not seem like it sometimes, but you do have a purpose for being here. We all do. It is my belief that you will not die. Death will not come to you until it's your time to go, until your purpose has been fulfilled. So, with that belief, just you being here right now, listening or watching this video, you still have a purpose that you need to fulfill. So just continue being you, continue growing, remain humble, never be afraid of change, never be afraid of taking some L's, some losses, and using your failures to figure out what you need to do and how you need to change your life or your character or your situation. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys a lot. So very much. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. You've been watching ASMR Chic. I'm JJ the Chic Prince. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for watching.